Tamara Padi, a woman who once radiated warmth, ambition, and joy, found herself facing a darkness she could not escape. She had moved from South Africa to the UK with her husband Aubrey, in search of a new life, a fresh start. And for a time, it seemed like they had it all, a loving family, 2 beautiful daughters, and a growing business that they both worked hard to build. But beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect life, something was slowly unraveling, something that no one could have predicted. Tamara's journey was more than just about building a career. She was a mother, a caregiver, and a protector of her children, always striving to give them a better future. Her business, Greenleaf Health and Social Care, reflected her nature, a woman who genuinely cared about others. She was known for her kindness, her ability to make people smile, and her boundless energy. Friends and family saw her as someone who was always there for them, the type of person who would lift others up when they were at their lowest. But behind closed doors, her marriage to Aubrey was deteriorating. The cracks in their relationship began to show, and over time, what had once been a partnership based on shared dreams turned into a battleground of control, fear, and escalating tension. Tamara and Aubrey's separation, though outwardly amicable for the sake of their children, concealed a darker, more dangerous undercurrent. It's easy to look at a family and assume that everything is as it seems, to assume that the smiles in family photos and the shared moments of joy are the full story. But the reality can be far more complex, far more painful. The facade of peace hid the truth of an increasingly toxic relationship, one that would ultimately spiral out of control. What went wrong? How could a man who once vowed to protect and cherish her turn into someone capable of such violence? What drove him to commit such a horrific act? As we explore the details of that fateful night, we will uncover more than just a brutal murder. We will peel back the layers of a life marked by fear, secrecy, and betrayal. And we'll ask ourselves the question, could this have been avoided? Could anyone have seen the warning signs before it was too late? Before we dive deeper into today's chilling case, we'd love for you to join our community. If you enjoy these stories, please take a second to subscribe. Subscribing ensures you never miss an update and helps our channel grow, allowing us to continue bringing you fresh, in-depth true crime stories every day. We value your thoughts, so feel free to share your views on this case in the comments below, and let us know where you're tuning in from. Your participation truly makes a difference in expanding this community and raising awareness. Now, let's continue with the story. After 14 years of marriage, what had once been a shared dream between Tamara and Aubrey crumbled under the weight of emotional turmoil and unspoken fears. They had been through so much together, building a life in a new country, raising 2 daughters, running a business. But even the strongest foundations can crack, and the cracks in their marriage were beginning to widen. Tamara, ever the optimist, hoped that even after their separation, they could still maintain a peaceful relationship, at least for the sake of their children. On the surface, it seemed like the typical story of a couple trying to move on after divorce, trying to stay civil, trying to co-parent. But as we dig deeper, we begin to see the subtle yet unmistakable signs of something far more unsettling, something that no one could have predicted from the outside looking in. Tamara herself started to notice the changes in Aubrey, the small shifts that made her uneasy. In conversations with friends, she described her ex-husband with a chilling word, creepy. He was no longer the man she had once known, the man she had married. He had become someone else, someone who would invade her privacy, someone who would cross boundaries that no one should ever cross. Aubrey had begun to go through her personal belongings, reading her private messages, listening to her voicemails. These weren't actions of a caring ex-husband trying to stay involved in her life for the right reasons. These were signs of control, of obsession, of something far darker. Tamara tried to brush it off, tried to convince herself it was just a phase, but the tension kept building. Then, in a moment that shocked everyone who knew them, Aubrey crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Weeks before the attack, in an argument over a phone, Aubrey physically assaulted Tamara. He punched her. This wasn't just a heated disagreement, this was violence. And it was a warning sign that Tamara, tragically, couldn't ignore. The facade of civility was beginning to crack. The man she once trusted, the father of her children, had become a source of fear. But the question remains, was anyone paying attention? Could someone have stepped in before it was too late? And what drove Aubrey to this level of violence? The answers would become painfully clear as the events of that fateful night unfolded. The clock strikes 3:30 a.m. on July 7, 2021. Tamara, exhausted from a long shift as a caregiver, pulls into the driveway of her new home in Greater Manchester. After all that had transpired, the separation, the tension, the fear, she finally has a moment to rest. Or so she believes. But unbeknownst to her, as she steps into the quiet of her home, someone is already waiting. Aubrey, her estranged husband, had been there for hours, hiding in the shadows, preparing for what would unfold next. The man who was once the father of her children had crossed a point of no return, and he was about to make his move. Aubrey didn't act on impulse. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was cold, it was calculated, and it had been meticulously planned. He had armed himself with knives, a hammer, even a length of cord, tools for a job he was determined to finish. He had gone so far as to set an alarm on his phone, ensuring that he would be awake and ready when Tamara returned home. This wasn't just a chance encounter, this was an execution of a twisted plan, carefully timed to ensure Tamara would be at her most vulnerable. She entered the house unaware, trusting the safety of her own space, believing that after the chaos of her separation, she could finally find peace. But in that very moment, her world was about to be shattered, not by a random act of violence, but by someone who had spent hours plotting her demise, someone who once promised to protect her. Aubrey's intentions were clear from the moment he set that alarm. This wasn't an act of spontaneous rage, it was a methodical, chilling plan to take control in the worst way possible. As Tamara unknowingly walked into the trap, her fate was sealed, and a terrifying night was about to unfold. Tamara enters her home, weary from a long night of care work, believing that the quiet of her own house will offer a brief moment of relief. Her co-worker, who had accompanied her home after the shift, stays downstairs to rest. Tamara, seeking the comfort of her bedroom, heads upstairs, unaware of the nightmare that is about to unfold in the very place she should have felt safest. The house is eerily quiet. But that peace would not last long. At exactly 3:30 a.m., the silence of the night is abruptly shattered by the unmistakable sound of screams, Tamara's screams, raw with terror and pain. The horror that had been lurking in the shadows has now erupted into the open. Tamara's co-worker, who had been resting downstairs, is jolted awake by the scream. Panic sets in as they rush up the stairs, not knowing what they're about to walk into. But as they reach the top, they are met by a sight that stops them cold. Aubrey, the man who once promised to love and protect Tamara, is fleeing the scene, his face devoid of any emotion, his steps quick and deliberate. There's no sign of remorse, no indication that this is a moment of regret. Aubrey is simply leaving, as if the act had already been completed. But the terror doesn't end there. What happens next is even more chilling. As Tamara's co-worker stands frozen in shock, something changes. Aubrey, who had initially seemed to flee the scene, turns around. The screams grow louder, more desperate. It's clear that Tamara is still fighting for her life. And Aubrey isn't done yet. With cold determination, he runs back upstairs. What happens in those next few moments is nothing short of horrific. Aubrey, having already assaulted Tamara, returns to finish what he had started. This is no longer a moment of rage, it's a relentless, calculated attack. And as the screams echo through the house, a chilling reality sets in. Tamara's fight for survival is far from over. But in that moment, she's alone, and the danger has never been more real. Aubrey's final attack on Tamara was nothing short of brutal. After beating her with a metal exercise bar, he showed no mercy, continuing his assault in a cold, methodical fashion. He stabbed her 8 times, each wound a deliberate act of violence. When the police arrived at the scene, they found a horrifying trail of evidence, not just the bloodstains that led to the front door, but a knife, carefully hidden beneath a car parked outside. It was as if Aubrey had planned this every step of the way, leaving behind an eerie imprint of his actions. As officers worked to secure the scene, the chilling reality of the situation became more evident. But what truly sent shockwaves through the investigation was what happened next. Aubrey, still at large and unaware that his crime would soon be exposed, made a call that would forever seal his fate. When the 999 call was played back, it sent chills down the spine of everyone who heard it. Aubrey confessed to the murder, but not with the regret one might expect, not with any sign of guilt. His voice was eerily calm, detached. There was no emotion in his words, no sorrow for the life he had just taken. Instead, he justified his actions with one chilling phrase: "She deserved it." Those words, spoken without hesitation, without any sign of remorse, were a haunting revelation of the man he had become. What could possibly drive a person to such cold violence? How could someone who once loved and cared for Tamara, someone who shared a life with her, be capable of such brutality? The question lingered: what twisted sense of entitlement, what broken mindset, could justify this monstrous act? And as the investigation unfolded, more would come to light, exposing the true depth of the darkness that had taken root within him. If you've made it this far into the video and haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to do so. Your support helps us continue sharing these important stories. If you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Tamara's story. What do you think really happened? Do you believe the investigation was handled properly? And if you're comfortable, let us know where you're watching from. Your input is a vital part of this conversation, and together, we can keep raising awareness about domestic violence and its devastating impact. As the investigation into Tamara's tragic death unfolded, the pieces of the puzzle began to come together, pieces that painted a terrifying portrait of Aubrey's escalating behavior in the months leading up to the attack. Investigators uncovered a chilling trail of evidence: text messages, phone calls, and threats that revealed a pattern of obsession and control. Tamara had tried to move on, to escape the man who had once been her husband, but Aubrey's attempts to stay tethered to her were far more sinister than anyone had realized. He had stalked her. He had violated her privacy, rifling through her phone and listening to her voicemails. He had crossed lines that should never have been crossed, but no one, not even Tamara, fully understood the depths of his fixation. The warning signs were there, clear for anyone paying attention to see, but the reality is, no one truly saw the danger, at least, not in time. What if someone had intervened? What if Tamara's friends or family had recognized just how much Aubrey's behavior had spiraled? Could they have stepped in before it was too late? Could they have done something that might have spared Tamara her life? These are the questions that haunted those who knew her, who loved her. The failure to see the danger until it was too late is a painful reminder of how domestic violence can silently escalate, often hiding in plain sight until the worst happens. When the case finally went to court, Aubrey Padi pled guilty to the murder of Tamara. There was no trial, no drawn-out legal battle, just a man who had been caught, who had confessed to his crime, yet still showed no remorse for his actions. His plea, though swift, didn't answer the questions that many were asking. Was this enough? Was a sentence of 23 years in prison really justice for the brutality of what he had done? The legal system may have spoken, but the emotional weight of the crime lingered. For Tamara's family and friends, 23 years felt like too little. A life had been stolen, a mother, a daughter, a friend, and no sentence could truly bring her back. But as the judge passed down the sentence, the question remained: was justice truly served? And would the time that Aubrey spent behind bars ever make up for the years Tamara had lost? Was this punishment enough for the life he ended so violently? For those who loved Tamara, the answer was far from clear. The emotional toll of Tamara's death rippled through every corner of her life, her family, her friends, and the community that had known her for so long. In the blink of an eye, everything they had taken for granted was gone. The woman they knew, the woman who was always there for them, the woman who could light up any room with her laughter, had been brutally taken from them. But for her daughters, the pain was something no child should ever have to endure. At just 10 and 15 years old, they were forced to navigate a world without their mother, a world that had suddenly become colder and more uncertain. Their grief was profound, a weight that no child should have to carry. The days that followed were filled with questions, confusion, and a deep, aching emptiness. Her eldest daughter, in particular, struggled to find words to describe the enormity of the loss. For her, it wasn't just the loss of a mother, it was the loss of her best friend. Tamara had been her rock, the one who understood her like no one else could, the one who knew her every joy and every sorrow. "I feel so distraught," she said, unable to hold back her tears. "It just doesn't feel the same without her." In those words, the depth of her pain was laid bare, a pain that will follow her for the rest of her life. How do you cope with the sudden, brutal loss of the person who was your whole world? How do you find your way when the person who loved you most is no longer there? The community, too, was left reeling from the tragedy. Tamara had been more than just a mother or a professional, she had been a friend, a neighbor, a guiding light to those who knew her. And now, they had to live in a world where that light was extinguished far too soon. The loss wasn't just personal for her family, it was collective. Her absence created a void that no one could fill, no matter how hard they tried. And yet, the world moves forward. But for Tamara's daughters, her family, and those who loved her, the pain of losing someone so deeply loved lingers, a constant reminder of a life lost in a moment of unimaginable violence. The emotional toll isn't just something they feel now, it will be carried with them forever, an indelible mark on their hearts that time will never fully erase. So, what really happened here? What drove Aubrey to commit such an unspeakable act against the woman who had once been his partner, his friend, the mother of his children? Was his anger a result of a personal breakdown, a moment of lost control? Or was it something deeper, something more ingrained in him that had festered over time, leading to an eruption of violence? The escalation of Aubrey's behavior in the months leading up to Tamara's death was shocking, from subtle control tactics to outright violence. Could this all have been avoided? Could the warning signs, which were so evident to those close to Tamara, have been taken more seriously? Was there an opportunity for someone to intervene before it was too late? These are the questions that linger, unanswered, in the wake of this tragedy. Tamara was not just a victim of random violence. She was someone who had tried to move on, who had taken steps to distance herself from her abuser, and yet she was still forced to pay the ultimate price. What if, in those final moments, someone had noticed the warning signs, stepped in, or perhaps even offered Tamara the support she needed to break free entirely from Aubrey's grasp? Could this crime have been prevented? As we piece together the details of this heartbreaking case, the one thing that stands out is that the signs were there, the obsessive behavior, the threats, the violent outbursts. They weren't hidden. They were, in fact, glaringly obvious. The question that remains is, why didn't anyone see them in time? Why didn't someone step in sooner? This wasn't just a failure on a personal level, but a failure of the systems around Tamara. Could society have done more to protect her? Were there resources, support systems, or warnings that could have made a difference? And more importantly, what does it say about the broader issue of domestic violence if even those who are closest to the victim fail to recognize the danger until it's too late? These are uncomfortable questions, ones that don't offer easy answers. But they are questions that need to be asked, because if we don't confront them, we risk letting tragedies like Tamara's continue to unfold, unnoticed, until another life is lost. So, what could have been done differently? And who is truly responsible for the violence that claimed her life? Tamara's story is not just another true crime tragedy, it is a powerful cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the dangers that lie in ignoring the subtle signs of domestic violence. It's a story that underscores the fact that no one, no matter how strong or independent they may seem, should ever have to endure the kind of terror and pain that Tamara faced in her final hours. The brutality of her death is a testament to how domestic violence can escalate, often quietly, until it explodes in a moment of unimaginable violence. We cannot look at this story and simply turn away. We must recognize the warning signs, the controlling behavior, the threats, the isolation, before they escalate into something much darker. We must ask ourselves, could we have done more to help Tamara? Could we have noticed the signs, intervened earlier, and saved a life? The truth is, these stories are happening all around us, and they don't just affect the victims, they shatter entire families, communities, and futures. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please remember, there is help available. No one has to face this alone. Whether it's through trusted friends, family, or professional services, there are resources designed to support and protect those in need. Don't stay silent. Speak up. Reach out for help. It's never too late to seek safety, and there is always a way out of the darkness. Tamara's death should not be in vain. Let her story be the catalyst for change, for awareness, and for action. Protect those who need it most, because the next life saved could be the one closest to you. If you see something, say something. If you're in danger, don't wait. The strength to break free from abuse is there. Sometimes, it just takes a single step forward, and that step could save a life.